There are few things in the world as scary as landslides. Globally, the highest number of fatalities from landslides have been in Asia and South America, as well as the Caribbean islands. Wherever slopes are steep, there's a chance they will fail. Landslides cause injuries, property damage, and in some cases, death. They also affect a variety of resources. Water supplies, fisheries, sewage systems, forests, and roadways are all affected by them. Almost every landslide has multiple causes. It occurs when gravity and mass of rock, debris, or earth move in a downward slope. Landslides happen in slopes that are already on the verge of movement due to heavy rainfall, snowmelt, stream erosion, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and disturbance by humans. Even a combination of these can cause a landslide. It may seem like it rarely happens because you never hear about them, but two major ones occurred just in the last few months of 2020. We're going to take a look at some of the biggest landslides caught on camera. Before we do that, pop quiz. Which of these is not a cause for landslides? Earthquakes, fires, wind abrasions, and volcanic eruptions? Put your guesses in the comments and keep watching. We'll tell you the answer. Let's begin. Mount St. Helens volcano. A brave student managed to capture this footage of the world's biggest and most dangerous landslide. The giant landslide occurred in 1980, and it was like opening the cap of a soda that was just shaken. Once the side of the mountain was removed, all manner of volcanic gases exploded out the side, and this blast traveled at speeds of 670 miles an hour. It caused a landslide and destroyed trees, homes, and wildlife in a 13-kilometer radius. In the area about 21 kilometers away from the volcano, the blast toppled trees and left them lying in neat rows as bare as toothpicks. Further out, the trees remained standing but severely burnt. As if that wasn't enough, a second blast followed, and it sent up a mushroom cloud more than 12 miles into the air. 57 people died as a result of this disaster, and its effects were felt in the months to come, as unemployment in the immediate area rose tenfold. Landslides are not unheard of in volcanic cones. After all, they are tall, steep, and become weak with the rise and eruption of molten rock. Gilgit, Baltistan, Pakistan. In October of this year, a particularly heavy monsoon in Pakistan caused a landslide to come crashing down on a passenger bus. It killed 16 people, including 4 Pakistan Army officials. Like we said before, monsoons in South Asia are unforgiving. In 2020, Pakistan saw heavy rainfall, resulting in 400 people dead, 390 injured, and 217,000 homes wholly or partially destroyed. During August and early September, they were also severely hit by urban flooding, leading to high death and injury count and over 300,000 homes destroyed. The Sindh area in Pakistan feels the worst of this, and it was even declared an emergency on 25th August of this year. The landslide in this video occurred in the Gilgit-Baltistan region in the north, which has 4 great mountain ranges close together, all prone to landslides. The bus was pushed into a ditch along the road in Skardu and buried under mud and rock. This video shows the relief efforts that followed, but the authorities said the chances of finding anyone alive are slim. The Sierra Leone landslide, Florida. Coastlines of countries are understandably vulnerable to landslides. Florida's combination of weather, weak sedimentary deposits, extreme rainfall, and steep slopes and bluffs give the perfect recipe for disaster. On 14th August in 2017, there was unusually high rainfall in Sierra Leone in Florida. "20 inches more than in previous years. The soil could only absorb so much before reaching breaking point. That breaking point usually comes in the form of a runoff, but in this case, it went into cracks and crevices and lubricated the ground on top of a hill. Eventually, a slab of unstable earth was pulled down by gravity and came crashing down, trees and all. The deadly landslide came crashing down and a torrent of dirty brown water flooded the streets of Sierra Leone in Florida. According to relief aides, more than 600 people went missing and about 300 were found dead. More bodies were found washed up on the beach. Landslides tend to occur over and over in the same location, simply because every landslide just makes the land more vulnerable and unstable. Any area composed of a very weak or fractured materials resting on a steep slope can and will likely experience landslides. Though the whole thing was over in just a few seconds, the aftermath was felt for a lot longer. Landslides can be prevented, however, with good engineering practices and effective land use management. Sri Lanka landslide. Monsoons in South Asia are without mercy. The torrential downpour at best would cause electricity shortage, and at worst would cause destruction and mayhem. They have been especially bad in the last several years, thanks to rapid transformations in farming, irrigation, aerosol emissions, rising greenhouse gases, and a warmer Indian Ocean. In 2016, rains caused a massive landslide to crash down onto 3 villages in Sri Lanka, and more than 200 families went missing, perhaps buried under the rubble. 16 bodies were recovered and 180 people were rescued. More than 300 soldiers were joined by local residents to help dig through the mud and the debris to recover more bodies. The total populations of the villages are unknown, but villages of that size tend to have no more than 1,000 to 1,500 people. The rains also unleashed mudslides and severe flooding in the capital city, Colombo, and tens of thousands of homes were destroyed. Big Sur, California. This one was caught on a camera all the way from space. That's how big it was. Jaw-dropping before and after satellite images of the California coastline were released in 2017. The landslide sent over 1 million tons of rocks and dirt across Highway 1 that overlooks the Pacific Ocean. It occurred on 20th May of 2017, but there was a smaller landslide earlier in the spring before this one. It's possible that the smaller landslides caused the big one that changed the coastline of the state, which wouldn't be uncommon. Much of California's coastline is vulnerable and open to collapse, but luckily, these areas are not so populated.
We've moved a tremendous amount of material here, tens if not 100,000 yards.
The destruction covered about 0.3 miles of the highway and caused 16 acres of land to jut out of the Big Sur coastline. It caused Highway 1 to close for a year while work was underway. While it's open now, it isn't any less risky. Even today, there are still small rocks coming down, and you can hear it. Pangi Valley, Himachal Pradesh. Pangi is a town in Himachal Pradesh, quite remote and rugged and poorly developed. The Pangi Valley has residents living at elevations of 7,000 to 11,000 feet above sea level. There is a small pass called the Sash Pass, open for vehicles only from mid-June to October, but mostly closed due to heavy snow. It is, in fact, one of the world's most dangerous roads, even when it's open. For a place as remote as this, natural disasters just hit harder. A landslide just this year caused massive damage to the apple orchards in the area and had the laborers here running helter-skelter looking for a safe place as giant boulders came crashing down. One boulder landed on a house and killed a 40-year-old Nepali man. This footage of the rocks breaking off the mountain and falling was captured by some workers, and needless to say, it's pretty scary. Vargas tragedy. The Vargas tragedy occurred in the winter of 1999 in Venezuela, when torrential rains caused flash floods and mudflows that killed tens of thousands of people. It led to a complete and utter collapse of their infrastructure. They were buried under almost 10 feet of mud, and many homes were simply swept into the ocean.
I don't know what to do any further. We're waiting for God's help.
Entire towns wholly disappeared, and 10% of the population died in the disaster. The coastal areas of the state have experienced mudslides and flooding before, but not to this extent. Before the 1999 tragedy, the most recent one occurred in 1951, which involved much less rainfall, landslides, and debris. The storm in 1991 dumped 35.9 inches of rain in just a few days, and needless to say, that was very unusual. It triggered massive soil instability and mudflows. 3 films were made on the Vargas tragedy, all by Venezuelan filmmakers, and released in 2011 to show the lasting impact of the event on the people of Vargas. Thistle, Utah. Thistle in Utah is, at best, a ghost town in Spanish Fork Canyon. In April 1983, a massive landslide dammed the Spanish Fork River. An 85 million meter cube of water backed up, flooding the small town. Thistle was destroyed entirely, but the residents were able to evacuate. Only a few structures managed to survive, but barely. Populations downstream from the dam were at risk because of the possible overtopping of the landslide by the lake. This would have caused a catastrophic outburst of the dam with a massive flood downstream. Federal and state governments commented that was perhaps the costliest landslide in history, with $200 million being spent to fix it. What caused it was unseasonably warm weather leading to rapid snowmelt to saturate the slope. During the rebuilding, a drain system was engineered to drain the lake and avert the potential disaster. You can still see some remains of this ghost town if you drive along the US 89 highway or the California Zephyr passenger train. Khulud Lahar, Indonesia. Khulud is an active stratovolcano in Java, Indonesia, and like most other Indonesian volcanoes, Khulud is known for large, explosive eruptions throughout history. More than 30 eruptions have occurred in just the last century, and it last erupted in 2014, destroying the lava dome and projecting massive boulders and ash up to 500 kilometers away. But the most severe of them was the one in 1919, when more than 40 million cubic meters of water gushed out of the crater at incredible speed. The ejection of water from the lake in the Khulud crater is typically short but violent, and the eruptions create mudflows that lead to fatalities and destruction. The dirt and heated waters traveled about 25 miles from the volcano, destroying 40,000 acres of farmland. 100 villages were destroyed, and it killed 5,000 people. Khulud may be a small volcano compared to the other volcanoes in the Ring of Fire, but because of the lake at its summit and the frequency of its eruptions, it is just as dangerous as any other volcano. The eruption and landslide of 1919 were so destructive, in fact, that the Volcano Survey of Indonesia was formed, and their first task was to drain the lake waters from Khulud. There had been earlier attempts because of the known frequency of Khulud's eruptions. After this very destructive eruption, authorities decided to dig a tunnel to prevent a repeat of the 1919 tragedy. A landslide occurring right in the middle of a highway and blocking traffic. The Highway 3 landslide in Taiwan. A 6.5 magnitude earthquake was felt throughout Taiwan on 25th of April 2010. A total of 4 cars were believed buried after the side of a hill collapsed and covered the full width of the freeway over a length of 300 meters. While the United States Geological Survey put the quake at a depth of 6 miles, Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau said it was 12 miles deep. The island lies in a seismically active stretch of the Pacific Basin, giving rise to regular quakes. Huascaran debris avalanche in Peru. On 31st May of 1970, the Ancash earthquake in Peru caused a major mudflow to land on the town of Yungay, plus 10 other villages. The Huascaran is a mountain in the Yungay province, and its north peak was considered unstable for quite some time. In 1962, a smaller collapse had occurred, wiping out several villages near Yungay. The only reason the bigger avalanche caused the damage it did is because the government did not warn the locals. They prevented the news from spreading and asked people not to panic, which means they had no measures in place to deal with a disaster of that magnitude.
95% of all buildings have been destroyed.
With a magnitude of 7.9 on the Richter scale, the Ancash earthquake destabilized a nearby glacier and snowmass, which surged downhill and became a mudflow as it collected dirt, rock, and water with it. It reached speeds of 270 miles per hour as it came crashing down, and heavier debris may have launched ahead at speeds of 680 miles per hour. It took about a minute and 45 seconds after the earthquake hit for the landslide to occur. It caused a staggering 25,000 deaths and might be the deadliest avalanche or glacier-related disaster ever. Only 400 people are known to survive the Great Peruvian Earthquake. The debris covered 3,700 acres of land and reached depths of 20 meters in some places. Yungay was buried under 5 meters or 16 feet of debris. Much of the mud that buried the city eventually got washed away in a few days, leaving behind large rocks which you can see even today. And those are 10 of the deadliest and biggest landslides ever caught on camera. To answer the question we asked at the beginning of the video, wind abrasions do not cause landslides. Did you get it right? I guess the moral here is to prepare. treat our environment properly, and most of all, never forget the formidable nature of the planet and what it is capable of doing.